There are profound consequences of providing a sanctuary for criminals. You know that. We know that. Common sense people know that. It's not some innocent thing, and it's not some righteous thing to say we're going to provide a sanctuary for anyone and everyone, no matter the circumstance, no matter where they came from, to be in our state, to live amongst us, in our communities, and to protect them from federal immigration agents and enforcement. And there's this constant argument about, oh, well, are they criminals once they're here, or are they just working? Their very first act on the soil of this nation was to break the law, was to come into this country illegally while so many are doing it the right way. And so I'm just done hearing that excuse, and especially when you have cases like this. So there's no doubt that Washington State Patrol Trooper Christopher Gadd would be alive today if it weren't for Washington's sanctuary policies. No doubt. You'll, of course, remember this case from March of 2024, been about a year, a little over a year. Christopher Gadd, just 27 years old, was out doing his job, protecting and serving in our communities, when he was struck from behind by a vehicle going 100 miles an hour, driven by an illegal alien named Raul Benitez Santana, 33 years old. He was accused of driving under the influence. Trooper Gadd was on I-5, pulled over to the side, doing a DUI patrol, when Benitez Santana, under the influence, 100 miles an hour, into the back of him, dead at the scene. Husband, father, young man, whole life ahead of him. And of course, after that happened, we learned that, first of all, the suspect was in the country illegally, and that he'd been contacted on multiple occasions during his time in our state illegally by law enforcement, but because of our sanctuary policies, was not turned over to ICE, was not deported from this country. So he got to break the law in this state. He got to continue to live in this state. And that allowed him to be on that road, driving drunk at 100 miles an hour, hitting and killing a Washington State Patrol trooper. So that's already bad enough. So we already know what Washington's sanctuary policies allowed for. Well, now Washington's sanctuary policies might allow this criminal, cop-killing illegal alien to walk away scot-free. So today was supposed to be the day that Raul Benitez Santana's jury trial began. Should be happening right now as we speak in Snohomish County. Why isn't it? Well, his defense team has filed a motion for dismissal. And in our state, I would not be surprised if it's granted. The basis for the motion for dismissal was reported by Como News. I want to give Jeremy Harris at Como credit for this. The defense attorneys claim that prosecutors colluded with ICE in this case. It says, days before a trial is expected to begin for the man charged with killing a Washington state trooper, defense attorneys have filed a motion to dismiss the case because of allegations that prosecutors violated the state's sanctuary laws by colluding with Immigration and Customs Enforcement in the weeks after charges were filed. Defense attorneys Tiffany Mecca and Emily Hancock allege a staffer in the Snohomish County Prosecuting Attorney's Office engaged in, quote, outrageous government misconduct by asking ICE officials in Seattle if they could put a detainer on Benitez Santana ahead of a court hearing last spring where he was asking for a reduced bail. So their argument is that act of a staff member in the prosecuting attorney's office to proactively contact ICE in case a judge released or reduced bail so much that he could get out, that act not only violated Washington's sanctuary laws, but prejudiced the entire jury pool against their client by letting the public know, essentially, that this is someone who's in the country illegally. So defense attorneys allege communication between the prosecutor's office and ICE violated the Keeping Washington Working Act and the Court Open to All Act. Emails cited in the defense memo show a legal assistant at the Snohomish County Prosecuting Attorney's Office contacted ICE on March 6th and asked about the possibility of putting a federal hold on him in anticipation of a proposed bail reduction. Here's what that staff member's email to ICE said. We believe defense is going to schedule a motion to reduce the bail in the next couple weeks. We would love to be wrong on this, but we need to prepare just in case. When I spoke to our jail, they indicated that it is unlikely that any bond company is going to be willing to post $1 million bail, so I do think we're safe currently. However, defense may decide to file a motion to reduce bail, and we may get a judge who is known for making unbelievable rulings hear the motion and decide to reduce the bail. So here you have this staff member who is rightfully concerned that you've got a guy who's in the country illegally to begin with, Benitez Santana, facing a very serious charge, facing a lot of time in prison for killing a state trooper. You've got judges who are known for reducing bail, and they did ultimately reduce bail in this case to $100,000 from $1 million for killing a cop. Yeah. So this staffer was reaching out to ICE to say, hey, would you guys hold him in an ICE detention facility or put a detainer on him so he's not out on the streets and possibly free to flee back to Mexico? Because of that simple common sense act, and because it violates our state's sanctuary laws about cooperation between local jurisdictions and the federal government for immigration efforts, a judge is considering right now whether to throw the whole case out. It's going to make a decision on Monday. Sick to my stomach over it. Can you imagine? And the thing is, in any reasonable, common sense, sane environment, you would think, well, of course that's not going to happen. I'm not so sure. The judge's name, and the judge hasn't done anything wrong at this juncture, so don't be mad at the judge or anything. I hope that this judge does the right thing. Judge Karen Moore in Snohomish County Superior Court is the judge who's going to be making this decision on Monday. I reached out to a few individuals who are connected with the criminal justice system in Snohomish County, asked, what do we know about this judge? Is there any sort of fear that this judge could make a bad decision in this case and let an illegal alien cop killer go free? And they weren't sure. They didn't have a strong yes, they didn't have a strong no, but didn't think that some attention toward this case would hurt matters any. So I think it's important that everybody knows what's going on. And the defense team also had made, so I mentioned the argument where they're saying, well, this is misconduct, right? They broke the sanctuary laws and reached out to ICE and it violates it. But they also argue in here that in doing so, and in their client's status as an illegal alien coming out, that they basically tainted the whole jury pool. So part of their argument is also to argue that their client can't get a fair jury trial in Snohomish County. They said the accusation against Mr. Benitez Santana includes the charged question of whether a Latino man who has been maligned by the media, the public, and elected officials as an undocumented Mexican criminal unlawfully caused the death of a police officer. According to the defense motion, the state reasonably should have known that including information about the client's immigration status in a publicly filed court document would result in its dissemination to the public and could materially prejudice the process. So I don't know what to make of this. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't have a good feeling about it. The fact that we should be in a jury trial today and the decision isn't going to be made till Monday gives the judge an awful lot of time to think, and maybe an awful lot of time for people to get in her ear or the media to do what the media does. So I'm very worried about it. And it's heartbreaking, certainly for us as supporters of law enforcement, but I think for every rationally thinking Washingtonian who remembers very well how painful the loss was of Trooper Gadd. I mean, young kid, wife, pretty new to the patrol, just a horrifying ordeal under any circumstance, regardless of who the killer was. But to know that it could have been prevented if not for our misguided sanctuary policies, and now to wonder whether the case is even going to be allowed to move forward because of those same sanctuary policies is utterly insane. So if anyone wants to argue that sanctuary policies don't protect criminals, they absolutely do. In this case, it was unlawful for the prosecutor's office to try to get a cop killer in the country illegally held by ICE. Our state won't allow them to do that. So don't even give me this nonsense that sanctuary policies are just about, making sure that people aren't harassed based on their skin color or aren't looking around, looking over their shoulder while they go out in our communities and just try to live their life. Sanctuary policies are dangerous. Sanctuary policies are deadly. Sanctuary policies are wrong. And that's why if the worst case scenario happens on Monday, the federal government has to intervene. There have to be federal charges that can be brought in this case. I mean, certainly you could deport the guy, right? I mean, he's remained in ICE custody. So ICE did, take him into custody when the bail was lowered. So he hasn't gotten out during this period of time. So at the very least, I mean, ICE can deport him from the country. But what's to say, and what kind of consequence is that? So, your consequence is you go home to Mexico and just live your life there like nothing ever happened, like you didn't kill a state trooper. So I don't know if there's something else the federal government can do. Can there be some sort of federal charge for the murder? I don't know. But it's certainly something that needs to be on the federal government's radar. I know Homeland Security Investigations is already aware of the situation and ICE is already aware of the situation. So we'll see what they can do. At the very least, deport him. But that is not enough. That is not enough. And that's not justice. So I'm very hopeful that this Judge Karen Moore, does the right thing, doesn't throw the entire case out over the actions, the well-intentioned actions of a staff member at the prosecutor's office who was only trying to do what prosecutors are supposed to do, which is protect the community from dangerous people and from further victimization. But in this state, you can't do that if the dangerous person has brown skin or black skin. Can't do that, because that's racist or whatever it is. It's absolutely insane. Breaks my heart. I'm going to hope for the best over the weekend. Won't be able to get it out of my mind until a decision comes on Monday. So I want all of you to know what's happening. I want you to share news of this far and wide. And certainly we'll be looking to the federal government once again to intervene in our state's absurdity if this guy is let off the hook.